I'm really excited to talk with you because I want to hear what, some of your experiences with him were. And I've got a few questions. I thought maybe I could kind of lead the
Sure,
conversation and just
sure,
see where it goes, if that's all right.
sure.
Um, and, so just first of all, my first question is how did you meet Hank and when? And then, but before that, can you just introduce yourself and say who you are and what you do
Yeah,
and all that
yeah.
jazz?
Did you guys meet at a gay club?
We'll find out. If he wants to tell that story, he can.
uh, my name is Sid Wilroy. I'm a retired physician, and I live mostly in Florida, and I still have a home in Memphis, where Hank and I got in a lot of trouble. But we do stay there less than half the time, I guess. But we're down here in Florida where we hope to fish and make pottery and sell art. And it's a great, great way to get away from medicine. Hudson's been here visiting us, and with Laura's been here with her kids. But
Yeah.
Anyway, that's where we are. Now,
Okay.
I met Hank originally through Bobby Cox. I knew that seemed like they went to Baylor together. And then they went to UVA, and Hank left UVA. Bobby stayed and went on to law school and has been a big fan of Hank all their lives. It's been 1-2. And quite often, if I'm with Cox, there's Hank. And if I'm with Hank, there's Cox. But it was a lovely relationship with both those guys. I don't know when that was. It could have been maybe in the mid 60s or something like that.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say it was when Cox was married to Carolyn, and Lynn and I got married in the mid 60s. So it was around that time.
Okay. So you met him through Bobby Cox, and it was where you went to school also?
No. I went to high school in Memphis, and then I went to Vanderbilt.
Okay. And so you met him at Baylor or UVA?
No, I met him in Memphis with Bobby.
Oh, okay. Got it. Okay. And then so Hank left UVA. Was he just like,
Yeah.
I'm done with college, or I don't like it, or what?
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Fantastic.
think he went in the military, Philip, and pictures that they have of him, he was in great shape and just a handsome dude while he was in the military. I don't remember when he married Beth, but it seemed like they were married ever since I knew him.
Let's see if we can pull this guy up right here. Is that the guy you're talking about?
Who is that?
Right there.
Who is that? Isn't he
Good looking
good-looking?
guy if I've ever seen one.
I'm telling you.
Yeah. And that's,
He
what is it,
had
a Mustang?
That's right. That's great.
And so that was probably, we could probably date that picture. Let me put it up again, just based on, I wasn't military, but let's see. We've got a flight helmet. We got I guess a P-51 Mustang. I don't know if that's the,
yeah.
So that would be flight school. On the back of that picture, it says first solo flight. So maybe was that maybe around the time of the Korean War or afterward?
I don't know, but what strikes me is how much he looks like your baby.
Yeah, he does. Where's that picture? I can't put them up side by side. I don't have that picture handy, but we can, we'll throw them up there. All right. So you guys met, and what was your first impression? Were you like, who is this character? I don't know if I'm going to be able to get along with this guy, or what was your first instinct?
I didn't know if Cox and and Hank were more than I could handle. Here I am trying to do research, and they are just raising all kind of hell. So I don't know what to say about that, except
you can say whatever you want, man. I want to know what were they just rolling in with a 12-pack on their shoulders, like, hey, you need to quit studying and come drink these beers with us.
That's right. Let's go do this. Let's go do that. And I said, man, I can just you know what the hell? I was doing research and newly married, and had 2 babies on the way, and
oh yeah, that'll calm that flame real fast.
That's
you
right.
Had them all went through me.
Yeah, with Lynn. We had a little girl. The next year we had a little boy in 68, 67 and 68. Yeah.
Because Carolyn
Okay.
and I were friends.
Carolyn, Bobby's wife, first wife, was dear friends with Lynn. They'd gone to Hollins together, and I had known Carolyn. Her family lived down on the Gulf Coast, and her daddy was a doctor, and so we were fast friends for a long, long time. Carolyn and Bobby and Lynn and I.
Mm-hmm. And what was so you guys met in Memphis. You were studying to become a learned doctor, and Hank came in and was like, "Hey, cut that nonsense out. Let's go shoot some birds and chase some girls and gallivant."
The main thing was drink. Let's drink something. And they had all these signs, you know, get drunk and be invisible. Drunk.
Wait, what's that?
These were slogans on the back of the trucks. It was just get drunk and be invisible, you know. And
so as a bumper sticker on the back of a truck?
Yeah, bumper stickers.
Just seems like that's inviting law enforcement to come and get involved in whatever you're doing.
Exactly right. The best one was get drunk and be somebody.
All right. Throw caution to the wind. Okay. So Hank was a bit of he wasn't studying to pass any medical exams. I guess we could probably be safe to say that. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think some of the most interesting people that I know and historically are kind of like, you know, the norm be damned. Let's just kind of do what we're going to do and see what happens. And it kind of seems like that was his MO.
That's right.
So you all met in mid 60s, something like that. It sounds like. Okay. And then what happened? You know, what happened after that? He was kind of coming around, and did you finally accept an invitation to get drunk and be somebody or be invisible?
That's right. Well, we started hunting together, and that was an experience. Lynn's family lived in Tunica and has a place behind their home called Beaver Dam. So I would end up taking Hank and Bobby down to Beaver Dam, and we hunted down there off and on for years. One time, Hank and I went down there and we shot a few ducks, and then we saw this herd of deer. So they were coming through the woods, and Hank says, "You get on that side of the woods, I'll get over here." So he shot a deer. And I said, dang, you know, I mean, we through the woods. I hope the bullets don't go too far. Put the shotguns down, get a rifle. So I had borrowed my cousin's rifle, and the scope was not screwed down very well. So this string of deer came right by me, and I just held the gun up my hip and pulled the trigger, and I shot a deer. So when we got home, we had 2 deer and 2 ducks. It was a harvest. Now, the thing about it is, those vehicles, Cox had a Volkswagen minibus, or whatever they call those, microbus. Mm-hmm. And so did Hudson. Hudson had a microbus. And I said, well, it looks to me like I'm going to have to get a microbus. So Hudson knew everybody. I've never seen anything like it. The man called me one day and says, there's a friend of mine in town who just bought a microbus in Switzerland and he needs some money. Would you give him $2,000 and you can have the microbus? And I said, sure. VW. So anyway, we drove that thing for years all over the country. And maybe 10 years later, I sold it for $2,000. But it was, and Hudson told me, says, when you get to 50,000 miles, you're going to throw a rod. And I said, you're crazy. Well, lo, all three of us threw a rod once he got to 50,000 miles. I mean, he always amazed me with the stuff he knew about, you know. He was smart as hell. And he could, I told you, he could write nobody's business. He could draw. He was just a talented individual, but he didn't want to work. You know, that was it.
Yeah. When did it dawn on you that this was someone that was more than just a party boy, that was actually someone who was intelligent, just kind of wrapped up in the it's all a big game anyhow.
Yeah.
So just go until the fuse burns out type of guy. When did you know he was more than that?
I think probably when I first met him, because no subject came up that he didn't address and contribute to. You know, the guy was brilliant. He was just brilliant. He knew people all over the place. I remember, you know, we were in West Tennessee at this guy's house, and he introduced me to Faulkner's brother. And I said, Henry, you know.
Who's that? William Faulkner's brother?
Yeah. I said, son of a gun, how do you know all these people? I mean, that's just one instance, you know.
Yeah.
So we had supper with Faulkner's brother and chatted and all that kind of stuff. And you'd think Hudson was a literary critic at the way he carries on, but he probably was, you know.
Yeah.
Like, that's just one example.
Yeah. No, I remember. I mean, I obviously much different scenario between our relationship, but he would always have a piece of grandfatherly advice, or he would teach me how to, like to task a blade, or to tie a specific knot, or and I never, not once did I ever find his advice to be misguided at all. Correct. It was, nope, Granddad taught me how to do this and I'm going to do it. You know, step in the woods and step with your heel, brush with your toe, and you're not going to scare the birds away.
That's right.
Kind of thing.
And Hudson was funny as hell. You know, he was really.
Yeah. Yes, he was. What do you have anything in particular that you can recall that makes you smile and made you laugh that he said?
I was thinking about that. One time, Beth and Hank and Lynn and I went out to Colorado, and we were going to ski at Monarch Mountain, which is south of. Well, anyway, doesn't matter, but it's in South.
When was this? When
Monarch,
was this?
which is
when?
Oh, I can't remember.
70s, 80s, 90s.
Buena Vista. Well, I don't know. Maybe the 80s.
Okay. The reason I asked, the only time I ever skied as a child was when Hank and Beth, Grandma and Granddad, took me to Monarch in Colorado.
Oh yeah, sure.
And that was probably 92, I think.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're skipping ahead big time there.
Yeah, but you wouldn't believe he wouldn't do this again. But he knew somebody in Leadville, so we stopped in this fly shop, and it's like old friends. I said, "Hank, how do you know these people?" Anyway, one of the guys in the shop was making hats. He was making these felt hats that came to a point, looked kind of like a cone head. So I bought one that was red, and you could pull it down over your ears. And Hank bought one that was kind of tan. So then we travel on down to Monarch with the ladies and all that kind of stuff. We get down there, and I'm wearing my felt hat, and I skied down to that bottom lift, and everybody got out of my way. And I went up the mountain, came back down. I said, well, I'll try the middle lift. Went down, everybody got out of my way. I said, what the hell is this? These are the nicest people I've ever seen. So I came back down the middle lift, and this kid walked, well, we were just waiting, and the kid walked up to me and pulled on my jacket and said, are you really the Grand Dragon of Ku Klux Klan?
Might want to trade that hat in there, Sid.
Oh, we squashed those hats down like nobody's business.
Didn't know you skied, sir. Oh my goodness.
So it was a Sunday, and this guy said, we're going to have a little church service up on the bunny slope. And I said, Henry, you want to go to church? He said, yeah, let's go up there. Turns out the minister was the same guy that was cooking hot dogs at that lodge at the bottom of Monarch. And I never will forget it. He had on a carpenter's uniform. I said, you skiing and all? He said, yeah, it's fine. So we go up and have this little brief service on the bunny slope. And Hudson says, I really wish it would begin to snow, because the runs are getting pretty beat up. And the preacher said, he said a little prayer, said, yeah, we do. Lord, we do need more snow. Well, don't you know, at that time, a blizzard came in. And then Hudson and the preacher were saying, Lord, that's enough. That's just enough. Thank you very much. That's enough. So we had to get off the mountain. It was a mess. But anyway, everything we did with Hank was really fun.
Yeah, he was always he was larger than life character.
That's right.
To me, he was Santa Claus to me when I was little, because he resembled Santa Claus in my opinion. And he just was the kind of guy that just kind of knew a little bit about everything.
That's exactly right.
He could converse with any circle, any type of person, and he didn't seem to mind any type of person. So where did you guys drive around in this VW bus? You three people, three of you had buses, and you all caravanned, or
Stokes had one too. So okay. Stokes. So four of us had the same kind of vehicle. Mm-hmm. And one time when Cox lived on Morningside Park in a guest house, he had split from Carolyn, and he was working really vigorously with Fred Smith on starting up FedEx. Well, he lived in Fred Smith's guest house, Cox did. Mm-hmm. And Hudson says, well, he's got a real important meeting downtown. Why don't we hide all his shoes and fill his Volkswagen up with leaves? So we did. And Cox gets up late, hungover, no shoes, gets in his Volkswagen, lets all the windows down, and leaves are blowing like hell. He's in his stocking feet going to this FedEx meeting. I said, Hudson, you're a genius. Anyway.
That's great.
Yeah.
You guys, so all right, so that was funny and an awful thing to do to somebody as they're launching their career. But yes, that is really, really funny. What is one of the things that, when you said that Hank, well, we both said that Hank seemed to just know a little bit about everything. What was one of the things that you were impressed by with his knowledge?
Well, we used to go fishing in Chandelier, which is out in the Gulf, and Hudson would know what plug to use, where to fish and all that kind of stuff. The same thing happened everywhere he went, whether it was the Spring River in Arkansas. That's what I wanted Sid to tell you about the time. He and Cox were over there fishing, and Sid went with them. And he said they started drinking, and he was starving after fishing. And it was just a mess. He had a sofa. Cox had a sofa that he pulled out of his Volkswagen, and they sat around the fire on the sofa drinking and hopefully cooking something to eat. But anyway, that just
didn't bring any food. Didn't bring any food. They're just like, we're gonna.
Yeah, we're gonna eat the fish. Well, where are they?
Yeah.
Well, they in the water. Okay. Sid
said, we're gonna run out of beer.
That's right. Sid said, why the hell am I over here? I thought we were gonna fish and eat supper. Anyway, he said, I just can't believe I was with them, but it's typical.
Yeah. You told me, back to the deer, the duck, and then the deer hunting story. It sounds like you guys set up a kill box and could have killed each other with the crossfire. Glad you didn't.
Thank God. Yeah. And so we gutted it was just ridiculous. I said, when I started shooting, Hudson said he was on the ground.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't know if guys were going to try to get close enough to take a deer out with a shotgun, which would have to be, 20 feet. But
we had shotguns and rifles in the truck. And so we killed a couple of ducks. Then we saw the deer, and Hank said, let's go shoot a deer. So we did.
Might as well.
I mean, what the hell? They're there. Let's take them.
They're there, might as well. When you and I were speaking the other day, and we're talking about this conversation we're having now, you mentioned that there was another time that you were, I believe it was duck hunting with Hank, and you went out of the blind for some reason and then came back.
Right.
Do you remember the story you told me? Could you reiterate that for me?
We were in Arkansas, and I had to go back to the bank for something. Either I was trying to take phone calls while still seeing patients, which it's hard to believe, but I did that. But anyway, went back towards the blind, and I saw this white shining object right outside the blind. And I said, there's no way in God's world we're going to kill a duck with that, whatever the hell that is. And as we got closer, it was Hank's butt. He had to go to the bathroom, and it was shining in full sunshine. That's right.
That's a big duck deterrent right there. That's he was not a small man.
That's correct. And I told you
how'd the rest of that hunt go?
I don't remember. We were drinking.
Okay.
But anyway, he had to go to the bathroom one time and took his suspenders off of his waders and squatted out in the field. And then he pulled the straps back up over his shoulders. Of course, he had potted right directly on his straps. And he smelled so bad, we had to ask him to leave. But anyway, he didn't. And just typical.
Like, this is fine. This is the best camouflage. You want to hide your scent. I did it on purpose, guys.
Yeah, God, Moses. He's
knowing him, he flipped it on you and said, what you all need to do is step your game up, because they can smell you. They can't smell me now.
I don't know, but I remember that distinctly. But I was going to think of something. I'll think of it in a minute. We go ahead.
Yeah,
we were hunting over at in West Tennessee, a place called Skytop that's owned by the Oates family, and we had killed a lot of deer over there. I said maybe one a year that I would want. I don't know how many Hudson killed, but it was snowing and freezing cold, and we gutted the deer, and I couldn't leave him over there because he'd freeze. So I had him in the back of the Volkswagen and took him to Memphis. Lynn and the kids had gone to a wedding or something. And so I drug that carcass across the backyard, and I didn't want him to freeze, so I hung him up in the shower curtain of the bathroom. So when I put his head up by the spigot in the shower, and when Lynn and the kids came home, I tried to clean up all the mess I drug through the house. She had to go to the bathroom, and I heard this blood-curdling scream. Here's a damn deer in the shower hanging up. Anyway, that was a mess. And I took Hudson, that's another bit of advice. Don't let the deer freeze. Put him in a warm spot. So one time we had a deer at the house, and I said, Hudson, he said, I'll teach you how to butcher him. I said, okay, we'll just drag him down the steps in the basement and put him on this big old table, poker table, and we'll just butcher him down there. So
on a poker table.
Yeah.
Okay. That's perfect.
Isn't that beautiful?
Nice felt top. It might as well have been a pool table.
I mean, destroy whatever it is. You
got to go with what you got.
So we didn't want to get dirty. So I had some of these operating gowns, and I dressed Hudson in one of those, and my daughter Ivy was dressed in one of those. And we continued to butcher this deer, skin him out, and cut him in the hindquarters, and got the tenderloins and the loins out. And then he said, what do you want to do with the head? And I said, well, I'd like to mount the horns, the skull. So I had gone to Kroger and borrowed their meat saw. And so I said, Hank, let's just cut through the back of the deer's head and along his nose, and then we'll dry it and hang it on the wall. And all of a sudden, once I opened the skull, I heard, "Brum!" Hudson fainted dead away right in the basement.
So his idea to come mess your poker table up, you get the scrubs ready. You're like, I do this. Like, this is my world here. And then he couldn't take it and passes out from.
That's right. He just was overwhelmed when we got to the head. But Ivy, she hung in there with me too. And then he woke up and everything was okay.
And he said, don't tell anybody this until after I'm gone.
I did. Probably.
That's great. There was another story about him. He was an amazing chef, as we know.
Right.
And one of my favorite recipes that he had was a Morel mushroom sauce.
Wow.
And he would take me out to Chucalissa, and we would hunt mushrooms. And I didn't know. I mean, I'm sorry.
See, that's what I'm saying. He knew everything about something. Yeah. It was incredible.
I didn't know that you hunted mushrooms, which is really just like an Easter egg hunt, I guess.
Yeah.
But we find these mushrooms. I'd never seen it before. And he's like, this is the one that you want. And we gather a big bag of them. And, he was the kind of guy that would take all day to make a sauce.
Yeah.
And it was a damn good sauce. You'd sit around. I was too young to drink and stuff, but I'd imagine if that's what you're doing, I mean, those are the things I appreciate now. We're gonna smoke some meat and we're gonna drink some bourbon, and hopefully we'll be awake enough to take the meat off when it's done, and everybody else can enjoy it.
That's exactly right.
And that's kind of what you did. But one of my favorite recipes that he had was that it was like a Morel mushroom cream sauce.
Wow.
That was absolutely to die for, and it was a kind of a Thanksgiving thing that he would do when I was little. But you mentioned. There was a story about him smoking meat, and it was pretty unique. Can you dive back into that for me?
The Hudsons had a nice home in Germantown, and it just kind of went down. But outside the kitchen was a fireplace and a big smokestack. And so one day I went out to see Hudson, and the whole thing was amazing because they had mounted fish up all around the where the walls meet the ceiling, and these were colorful tropical fish that had been mounted and been up there. It was beautiful. So I was going back and talked to Hank, and we had previously lived in a little guest house on Germantown Road and wasn't too far away. So I went over there by the house, and I pulled up, and all these kids were in the middle of the street with their bicycles. And I said, "What are y'all doing in front of the Hudson house?" They said, we're waiting for a heavyset man to climb a ladder, and he's going to get up to the top of the chimney. And I said, "You're crazy." Well, sure enough, here comes this big ladder. Here comes this big man, and up he goes to the top of this chimney. And I said, "What is he doing?" And they said, "We don't know." Said he unwraps string, and then he does that several times, and he comes back down and he builds a fire. And he does this often. I said, "What are you talking about?" Well, anyway, when the kids left and I went over and asked Hudson, I said, "Have you gone stark raving mad?" He said, "No, this is the way to smoke meat. You put it in the top of your chimney, you build a fire, an outdoor fireplace, and it's delicious." Well, it was. That sucker could cook. It really was. Yep.
So he would tie whatever cuts he was smoking and drop them from the top into the chimney just above the fire to smoke.
Yeah, but it was way up. I mean, it was a tall chimney. He didn't have enough string to go all the way down to the fire, but somewhere along the chimney that it got smoked. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. I will defer to your medical expertise. If you say it was delicious, then it was delicious.
It was. He cooked everything. One night at the house, mm-hmm. He, by some means, had obtained a hindquarter of a antelope. I said, "Man, I hadn't had antelope in ages." It's just like,
where the hell did he get an antelope?
I have no idea. So we went over there. Malcolm was there, and Hagen Peters was there, and Lynn and I had been to a medical meeting, and then we came out to eat some of the antelope. And the only thing I remember is that Malcolm put something in my pipe, that I was smoking a bunch of tobacco, acting like a professor. And I had to get Lynn to drive me home. I don't know what he did to me, but.
Sounds like that electric lettuce.
I'm telling you. But as well as funny. I remember, the antelope was delicious. Hudson cooked everything. He cooked. I can't tell you how many times we'd go duck hunting and he would fix oyster stew. And then he and Cox would get into a big argument because Cox would eat all the oysters before we got there, and that was a bone of contention. And that happened
down in Florida.
This was over in Arkansas hunting.
Oh, in Arkansas.
In Memphis, out in Germantown. Anyway, oyster stew became a bone of contention. But he could cook everything. He said, one night, "I'm going to cook a leg of lamb at your house. Why don't we just all eat over there?" I said, "Fine." We would have, I said, "Well, you want to use the outdoor grill?" Or he said, "Yeah." So he cooked it, and we were inside drinking, and Beth was there. And all of a sudden, Hudson brings in this delicious leg of lamb, and we get ready to eat, and nobody can find Hudson. So where is Henry? Well, we don't know. Was he mad? Did he leave? And so Beth says, "I'm going home. I don't know where he is." They were in separate cars. Beth says, "The hell with him. I don't know where he is." So she goes home, and then Bobby gets ready to leave. And I said, wonder where Hank is. His car's still here. Well, he was sound asleep in the rose bushes. And I told Cox, come on, help me get this boy up. Cox said, he's too damn fat. I'm going home. Anyway, that's just so typical, you know? It's just
got to let him sleep.
Slow typical.
That's great. That's great.
Oh,
There was one time in my day, as I'll say, I was probably 7 or 8 years old, maybe 10, I don't know. And he had that old Mercedes that I think he's probably still around somewhere, old diesel.
Yeah.
And he saw no harm in letting me stand up in the passenger seat with my head out of the sunroof, which is, hey, great. I'm having a blast.
Damn right.
And the Memphis Police Department felt differently. And so they let us know, as the usual routine, light us up, light him up. I'm just a kid. I'm innocent here. And so they're like, what the hell are you doing? And he's like, well, my grandson here, he wanted to put his head out of the sunroof, so I let him. and they're like, you can't do that.
That's
and
right.
He was the kind of guy that would, today's day and age is much different, but back then, I mean, even this is 30 years ago, he get pulled over, and Hank would stop, and he'd turn the car off, and he would open the door and get his wallet out and just start walking towards the police officer and be like, hey, let's settle this like gentlemen. No need to get anybody else involved. And so he did that. And I guess the police officer, he didn't draw down on him or anything, but it put him on edge a little bit. And so the officer was like, what are you doing? He said, my grandson wanted to stick his head out, so that's what we're doing. He's like, you can't do that. That's illegal. And of course, Hank's like, well, why the hell not? And just gets into this back and forth. And I'm scared to death, just shaking in my seat. And so it ends up, they handcuff him, and they're like, you're whatever the term is, you're being uncooperative. So we're going to handcuff. He was too big for one pair of handcuffs. So they put 2 pairs of handcuffs behind him and put him in the back of the police cruiser. Like, they kind of stuffed him in, and he couldn't fit with his arms behind him because he was a rotund gentleman. And so they brought him back out, and they put his hands in front of him, and then they put him in, and he was talking to him. And I believe it was just their design to just shake him up a little bit, but they let him out, and he comes back, and, there was just a long conversation back and forth. They ended with a handshake, and he came back, and he sat down in his car. And the first thing he said to me was nothing about getting arrested or don't do that. He said that boy, he said that boy had a watermelon in the back seat that was as big as I'd ever seen, and they wanted to put me in there with it, and I couldn't fit. And I said, how am I supposed to fit in the back of this cop car, this police car, with a watermelon? And I'm asking him, sir, I'm trying to do what you're saying, but there's this watermelon back here, and I cannot fit back there with. And so they thought it was funny as hell and just let me go. And that was, and I said, okay, granddad. I don't know what to say about that, but I was the only person for him to share that information with. So he did. And then we just drove on, and that was it. That was he
never told me the story, I tell you. But, he knew everybody in the world. And for some reason or another, he came up with a vehicle, red Nissan Patrol. And
Nissan Patrol. I don't know that model. I don't know what that is.
It was like a Jeep, with like a Jeep, and it was fire engine red. And he said, "You really ought to buy this. It's great." Well, I said, "Who owns it?" He said, "Well, I don't really know." I said, "Come on, man."
Come on. It doesn't really matter. I just need some money from you, Sid.
Yeah. I said, where is the title? I don't know. I said, well, I ain't buying this thing. And he said, well, let me just show you how well it runs. So we drive in the thing, no license, no paper, no nothing, out to Eve Wilkinson's house, who lived right off of Germantown Road. And I said, what are we doing? And Eve says, we're going to shoot chickens. I said, what? In my backyard, we got a bunch of chickens running around, and he'd been drinking also. He says, we're going to put the windshield down, and the guy in the passenger seat is going to stand up with his bow and arrow, and we're going to drive this Nissan through these chickens, and whoever's got the bow and arrow, you shoot the chickens. And I said, this makes perfectly good sense to me.
I'm in already. Yeah.
Why not? You want me to drive? Y'all shoot these chickens. Neither one of them hit anything. They lost all their arrows, and the chickens were fine. You know, I hate to think how many arrows we drove over, but anyway, the Nissan ended up living at my house, and I kept saying, Henry, what are you going to do with this Nissan? He said, I don't know. I said, well, it's sitting out there in the front of my house. Been there for months. What are you going to do with this Nissan? He said, I just don't know. Well, trees started growing in it. It was out there, bushes and weeds and all that kind of stuff.
Technically, your property now. Now that trees have grown in is your problem.
It's right. And so I said, Henry, I'm going to have it towed down to the filling station. If you want it, you can come get it. But I'm tired of looking at it out there in front of the house. So it goes down to the filling station. And I said, Henry, whatever happened to the Nissan Patrol? And he said, well, people robbed pieces off of it till it was all gone. I said, well, that's a good ending for the Nissan Patrol.
Yeah.
Did you ever know who owned it? No, never knew. I said, God damn. Okay.
So we just found it, and keys were in it. And don't ask, don't tell.
Don't I try? I don't know who it is. Well, Henry, damn, man. Anyway, that was the Nissan.
Chickens. Where did the bow and arrow come from?
Well, Hudson and Eve had bows and arrows out there in Germantown.
Okay.
They would just stand up and shoot the hell out of the bow and arrow. I guess I was driving and never hit a damn thing.
It's hard to hit when you're running and gunning like that. I've done a bit of prairie dog culling, we'll call it. And when you're even with a 22, if you're moving, it's hard to hit something. It's very hard. Yeah. I could only imagine how. I mean, I'm not saying I wouldn't do it, because if you ever do that again, call me first, because that sounds great. But
it's fun.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff people have too many cameras that you just can't get away with that stuff these days.
Another episode we had out at Eve's house was Jack Bellows had killed a small deer, and Hank says, well, let's just dig a pit and cook this deer. So we dug this it was icy cold, and dug this pit and put the coals ready to go inside, and then put the deer on a piece of a fence to hold him up off the coals, and covered him with some kind of leaves. I don't remember what that was. And we then covered it up with dirt and ate that small deer. It was just absolutely delicious.
Yeah,
I mean,
sounds like
how did Hudson know that? How do you know how to do all that stuff? That's right. I don't know.
What was his father like? Was he the kind of guy to teach him things like that? Did you ever meet him?
I don't think I ever met I met his mama before she got sick.
Yeah.
I met his uncle, Blackie, Leela's daddy was Hank's uncle. You remember Leela Bellows?
Yeah.
But I met him. That's not his name. His name wasn't Blackie. It was I can't remember. But anyway, that's the only generation I met from that area.
Okay. I just think it's fascinating for someone to have that much knowledge, and you got to wonder where it came from. You
I
know,
know it.
I mean, it's fascinating to me.
I always thought he was so damn smart. Work was beneath him. You know, he knew so much about so many things. Why shouldn't I work? You know?
Yeah, it's kind of how like the traditional education system
Yeah.
is built for people to, and this is my opinion, is built for people to clock in, do your task,
Yeah.
and there's no education about how to manage money. There's no education about how to elevate yourself from your current status. There's just, here's what happened in the Civil War. Here's a very tailored version of American history. Here's basic sciences and mathematics, but not really how to make your way in the world, so to speak. So I agree with you. I agree with you, Sid.
Yeah.
That,
but I love teaching in the medical school. I did that for 54 years, and we always brought up the history of who discovered penicillin and who discovered smallpox, and all of that was invigorating for the teacher and the students. And then it was a delightful experience teaching those kids.
Yeah. Absolutely. I wasn't referring to medical school. That would be a definitely higher education.
Yeah.
But just the basic levels of education, I could see how someone like Henry Hudson would not be interested.
That's correct. I mean, why not? I don't need you. I got these books and friends, and I can do it all.
That's right.
And he was such a good cook. He would always cook for the dove hunts over in Arkansas, and he and Bobby Cox had discovered a collapsible field stove that you could put in a canvas bag. And so we always got these canvas bags with the field stove in it, and you set it up and put the charcoal in there, and they cooked all kind of wonderful meals for the dove hunts. And so I think I left my grill over at Cox's house. And so years later, I had said, Hank, I want to borrow your grill. I can't find mine. And he says, they lived on Lorice Street off of Central. And Hank had planted the entire backyard in cane, all this cane. I mean, so he said, you just go by the house, that grill is in the backyard, and feel free to use it. I said, well, thank you very much. So I went over there, and I couldn't find the grill. And I looked around. There was so much cane. There was a scooter that was raised up by the cane growing. And I said, look at that, And lo and behold, I found the grill, which is about chest high. And I had to cut the cane down to take it home. I said, I wish we had pictures of that. There was stuff floating in the air on cane all through his backyard.
Yeah.
Children's toys, you name it. Anyway.
What a scene. So there was one instance I remember he had a Toyota Land Cruiser. It was like a tan Land Cruiser. And this was when my mother had me in 84, she went to finish school in Memphis, and I went and lived in Arkansas with grandma and grandpa. And he had this tan Land Cruiser, and there's no child seat or anything like that. It was just like, hold on. I'm like, all right. And there was this fish hook in the back, and this is how I learned about don't touch sharp things. And it was like, if you're riding behind the passenger seat and then the driver's seat and the passenger seat's over here to your right, the fish hook was right in the middle. So every time Granddad would take a hard left, my little arm would go right into the fish hook. And I don't know what's going on. I'm just like, why is there this, like, can we get this out of here, please? Am I, 2 years? Yeah. He's like, oh, we'll get it later or something like that. And just now I was like, I got a pair of pliers. We could get that real quick. Just take it, and it won't be a hazard to your grandson's eyesight or tetanus levels or anything like that. But it was just like, you'll be fine. Toughen up.
That's right.
And that's one of the memories that I have of just like, hold on, toughen up, it'll be all right. There was a hunt that, and he was the one that taught me to shoot and taught me to creep around and not scare the animals, and I did better sometimes than others as a child. Sure. But I was too young to hunt, but I was there and and was with him and all of his buddies. You may have been there, I don't recall, but I was about 5, and I was in the Land Cruiser, which it may have been. It doesn't matter what car it was, but everybody was out. It was probably a turkey hunt because everybody was kind of close to the vehicles, and he was just like, you just hang out here and we're going to be right there. And, don't come over there because we'll be shooting when we do. I'm like, yes, sir. And so I'm like, well, he didn't say anything about that way. So I'm going to hop out and I'm going to walk on some logs and just kind of poke around and look at the flora and the fauna and just kind of be my little self. And I remember walking on this log, and I'm just tootling around, and I can see, I'm like, oh, I've got a great spot. I can see where they are off in the distance. I've got a good viewing. And so I decided I'm going to sit down on this log and just watch. And so I sit down on the log, and right where I decided to sit, my behind went through into the log, just like a rotten log, it's compressed. And I don't know what breed they were to this day, but it was something with stingers and wings, and they just swarmed all over me. And by the time I'd figured out what, I was just flight, just go survive, screaming, tearing ass. And the only thing I could think of was get to Granddad. He will fix this. And I'm just screaming through the woods, screaming. And all these hornets, whatever we'll call wasps, maybe. And, Granddad's his first thing, and he's stalking mode, and he hears me screaming. He's like, that boy, he's in trouble. And so I come screaming through. I run past him, and I'm just in a complete hysteria. And he sees what's happening. And he tells everybody, please don't shoot my grandson. Just hold off. We're going to have to deal with this. Right. And he takes his jacket and he starts kind of beating me with it to get the hornets away. And I must have got stung 10 or 12 times. Yeah. And, I'm crying and sniffling everywhere. And he takes me to the truck and he starts just pinching all the little stingers out and everything. And that was my first experience with, I was like, why are they putting tobacco on me? What's going on here? And to get the stingers out. And he, nobody was, I was of course afraid for my life because I didn't know what was going on, but he sat me up on the truck and just with these massive bare hands and just, and here we go. We're going to get all these stingers out. And I swole up pretty good. And, but he didn't shoot me. None of his friends shot me. If you were there, thank you for not shooting me also. And he got the stingers out. And that is when I learned about watching your step in the woods.
That's right.
Because things will come up and get you.
He was a good woodsman. I remember deer hunting one time. I said, we were in Tennessee, and I said, Hudson, how in the world did you beat me back to the house? And he said, well, I was very still. I got out of my truck. I knelt down. I looked up, and there was the deer. And I said, you dog, here we are sitting in this blind all day, and you just get out of your truck and shoot this deer right in the middle of the road. Anyway, he was always doing that. Who caught the most fish? Well, Hudson,
Yeah.
Anyway, he was really talented.
Yes, he was. And he was a great man that, for a human also. No one's perfect. He was a great guy to be around.
That's
And
right.
he taught me more than I can even remember right now.
Sure.
And I will forever appreciate him. I've got one thing I want to share with you. It's another picture, and I thought maybe we could wrap up with this.
Okay.
I'm going to share it with you right here. And we'll see how the predictions came true. Here we've got Henry Hudson Jr. I don't know who wrote Hank on that, but it was not me. Born Memphis, Tennessee, February. That is a question. Maybe someone listening or watching this can answer that. I do not know.
Okay.
Born Memphis, Tennessee, February 15th. Son of a bitch. Today is February the 15th. It is his birthday today.
How about that, baby?
Wow. We did not even plan that, did we? Wow. What, Granddad? I know you're smiling down on us. Wow. February 15th.
Well, that's great.
1935.
That was the year I was born. Yeah.
But to the day, that's something.
Yeah.
Achievements, treasurer of the student body, and I don't know what school this is to, but it looks like high school.
Wait a minute.
This is high school.
Baylor. That's in Baylor.
That's Baylor?
Yeah, he went to Baylor.
Well, if he was born February 15th, 1935, and he was vice president of graduating class 1950, he would have been 15 then. Football 1949. Honorable mention, all Memphis football 1949, basketball 48 and 49. Ambition, here we go. To either be a dentist, commercial artist, or an architect.
I'm telling you, the guy could have done it all.
Yeah. And look at that head of hair.
I don't know. Maybe
look at
that rascal. He's a good looking, tough son of a bitch, I'll tell you.
That's right. That is right. We got a couple more photos here.
Sure.
Here's the man.
All right.
Back in his day. I don't know where that is, but he's a good looking guy there. And then we got that's my first dove hunt.
Yeah. Remember he
cooked in the field.
That's right. That's great.
Yeah, it is. And then that's my favorite right there. That's in Scotland.
Yeah. I
indeed.
think Laurie sent me a picture of him on a horse in somewhere in Europe. You need to get a copy of that. The Black Forest.
Yes, that ring? Already on it.
There he is. Look at that son.
There he is. That's a good looking horse and a good looking man and a good looking forest.
You got that right.
Well,
is there any way you can send me some of these pictures?
Oh, absolutely. I'll send them all to you. To you.
All right.
Well, Dr. Wilroy, it has been a pleasure. I'm gonna respect your time here. I got to get back to work, believe it or not.
Sure.
But I want to thank you so much. And can you do me a favor? Sure. If you think of any other stories, I just made a little list here. Of if you think of anything else, I'd love to talk to you again.
Sure,
because we've been talking for a little over an hour, and that just doesn't begin to sum up his life.
You got it. That's right.
Yeah. And thank you so much for your time.
Listen, I appreciate you. Thank you so much, Philip. I loved Grandpapa. He was just great. I loved him.
Yeah,
I tried to get in touch with him when he was in Middle Tennessee, and I stayed in touch with him quite often. And towards the end, I could tell his facilities are slipping. So, but he told me, I told you this, didn't I? That maybe I told Laurie, I guess. He kept saying, I've got to get to the other side of the river. He told me that 10 times. And I'm saying, well, Henry, you will. So it'd be fun to catch up with him when I need to tell him to save me a seat, because I can't think of anybody He next to yeah.
That was one of the calming things. He said that to me over Christmas, which is 2 months ago now. He was mentioning that, and it would come and go, in the things that he was kind of just going on about, and that's what stuck out to me. And it's one of those things that we don't really understand the metaphysical, because it's not something that you can't prove. It's not there's no data. There's no empirical data. And I just know that it's going to be all right. It's not goodbye. It's just, I'll see you later. And I'll bet my dad is, he's not fishing. He's probably sitting on his butt, sunning, just,
I know what he's doing. He's smoking salmon. That's what
he's smoking something. That's for sure. You got several seasoned smokers over there on the other side of the river, and they'll be waiting for us when our time comes too. I hope the beer's still cold when we get there.
Amen.